Name's Rick Danner. I haul freight mostly through the Dakotas, pays worth it. Solo driver, old school, run my own books, keep my own rig. Not much to say about me except I've been out here long enough to know when something don't smell right. Some folks think miles on the road build some kind of wisdom, like we got a sixth sense about trouble. I used to think that too, but experience doesn't keep you safe, not really. It just makes the danger easier to recognize when it's already too late. It was late January when this happened. North Dakota cold, the kind that burns your skin if you touch metal with bare hands. I was run a deadhead from Williston to Minot. Dropped off a load of aggregate at a batch plant and needed to pick up a reefer load headed south. Just a simple hop across US 2. Should have taken 4 hours tops, weather holding. Dispatch didn't say anything special. Standard routing, no detours listed, no DOT alerts. My Kenworth was running smooth, full tank, tires good, chains in the box. I checked everything twice before I left Williston. I always do when I see a storm building out west. They'd been saying on the radio we might catch a band of snow. Nothing major. You never believe the forecast out here anyway. It's either too much hype or not enough. So I roll out mid-morning, sun trying to push through the gray. It was already snowing light, not sticking yet, just blowing around like powdered sugar. Road was fine, a little wet. First hour, smooth. Passed a couple rigs heading east, gave the usual nod, nothing weird. Then just past Ray, I start seeing these barrels on the shoulder, DOT-style orange ones with white stripes, maybe 4 or 5, spaced weird. Not lined up like for a merge. They looked like somebody just dropped them and didn't bother finishing the setup. One of them was tilted, another half buried in a drift. I eased off the pedal a little, figured maybe some kind of minor shoulder work, or wind blew them out of alignment. Happens all the time, especially on these open stretches where there's nothing to block the gusts. About a mile later, I see another patch of barrels. This time they're a little tighter in, almost nudging into the right lane. I moved left a bit just to be safe. I scanned for signs, no construction markers, no work vehicles, no flashing arrows, nothing, just barrels. No reason for them to be there. But they weren't blocking anything either. It was strange, but not strange enough to stop. You see enough weird crap on the road, you learn not to jump at shadows. Weather started turning around that point. Snow got heavier, visibility cut in half. Still nothing serious, just the kind where you turn on your fog lights and ease back 5-10 miles per hour. My CB was quiet. Too quiet, actually. Usually someone's yapping about fuel prices or griping about lane closures. All I got was static. Tried switching channels, same. Then I flipped over in my local scanner, dead.
I figured it was the snow screwing with the signal, but I kept trying. I don't like driving blind. Alone's fine. Blind's not. I passed another rig parked on the shoulder maybe 20 minutes later. A tanker. Looked like he'd pulled over in a hurry. He was angled weird. Drive tires half in the ditch. Couldn't see the driver. I slowed and hailed him on CB. Tanker on US 2 eastbound, you all right? No answer. Tried again. Still nothing. I thought about pulling over to check on him, but something told me not to. Maybe it was how he was parked. Maybe it was how there were no footprints near his cab, no hazard cones out, no flashers, just sitting there, quiet as hell. Right after that, I came around a bend, and there they were again, more barrels. Only now they were lined up across the right lane, maybe 6 feet apart. Forced me to shift into the left lane to pass. Still no signs. I looked at my GPS, it hadn't rerouted me, still tracking US 2 like nothing was wrong. My gut was talking now. Something wasn't right. I don't spook easy, but I started thinking about how empty this road was. No plows, no patrol, no other semis. It was noon on a weekday. This road should have had traffic. I checked my mirrors, then looked ahead again. Another barrel set up in the distance. Tighter curve this time, snow drifting deeper on the shoulder. I took a breath and muttered to myself, all right, what the hell is this? Then I caught something I'd missed earlier. Faint tire tracks leading off the road, right into the drift past one of the barrel lines. They looked fresh, maybe a day old. Big tracks too, trailer axles. deep grooves from a loaded rig. I slowed and tracked them with my eyes until they disappeared under the snow. No markers, no flares, no way back onto the road. Just gone. Like the whole truck drove off and vanished. I thought about stopping, thought about turning back, but where was I going to go? I had a pickup window in Minot and I was already behind schedule. Besides, nothing I'd seen was illegal. Barrels on the road? Annoying, but not enough to call in. Maybe some temp detour or some lazy county guys forgot to clean up after a half-assed job. That happens more than folks think. But then I passed a roadside sign, green and faded, said Service Route 47 with an arrow pointing right, just past another set of barrels. The barrels weren't blocking the road anymore. They were guiding me. That's when it clicked in my head. They weren't warning me. They were steering me. And I started thinking, what if it's not the wind that moved those barrels? What if someone did it on purpose and not for my safety? You ever seen barrels on a state highway set up in a way that don't make sense, like they're hurting you instead of helping you? What would you do if it wasn't an accident? Snow thick and fast after that last turn. It wasn't a blizzard yet, but visibility kept dropping inch by inch, and the wind picked up something mean.
The kind that whistles through your side mirrors and rocks the trailer just enough to keep you tense. I dropped speed to 50, then 40. No one behind me, no one ahead, no chatter on the radio, just a hiss of static like it was stuck in its own snowstorm. Even the scanner, which usually picks up cops and plows jawing about traffic, stayed dead silent. That's not normal, not for US 2. This road might not be an interstate, but it stays busy. Tankers, grain haulers, oil service trucks, you always see someone. But that day, it felt like the road had emptied out just for me. I flicked on my fog lights, stared hard into the drift looking for anything that moved. The snow was fine powder, not the heavy wet stuff, but it danced in the wind like smoke, blowing sideways across the lanes. The kind of snow that plays tricks on your eyes. At one point, I thought I saw taillights up ahead, flickering through the curtain. I sped up a little, only to find nothing. Just more road and a soft shoulder getting eaten by snow. Then I saw the tanker again, or another one just like it. It was parked on the opposite side now, pointed westbound. Cab dark, no flashers. Trailer was cockeyed, like he'd tried to pull off but got sucked into the ditch. Same weird angle as the one before. I slowed down, looked for tracks, for footprints or drag marks. Nothing. Clean snow around it. I tried the radio again. "You all right over there, driver?" Static. "You need help?" More static. I scanned the sides of the cab for signs of life. Driver's side door looked fine, no signs of damage, no busted glass, but the silence felt wrong. Like stepping into a motel room you know should be empty, but your gut says otherwise. I rolled on. Something in me didn't want to sit idle next to that thing. Not out there, not alone. The snow got heavier by the mile. Wipers were working overtime, and the blower on high couldn't keep the windshield from fogging on the edges. GPS kept flashing recalculating, then would stabilize again. Cell signal dipped to 1 bar, then nothing. It's common out there between Ray and Tiaga, but it just added to the weight in my chest. Another curve, another line of barrels. This time they were different, closer together, tighter angle. Like they weren't meant to block anything, but to direct you onto a side road that I hadn't noticed on the map before. Narrow 2-lane, unmarked, barely plowed, looked like it went north for a bit, then curved east again behind a ridge. My GPS didn't recognize it. I stopped on the shoulder, checked my paper atlas, nothing. That road didn't exist on any of my charts. I leaned back, just sat for a minute, engine idling, heater humming. Snow pattered on the windshield like sand. For a second I thought maybe the DOT was redirecting trucks around a jackknifed rig ahead. But there was no signage, no patrol cars, no cones, no message boards. just barrels. I started to wonder if I'd missed a memo. DOT guys sometimes do that, set up last-minute reroutes during storms. Maybe a local crew put up an unofficial detour to keep trucks from stacking up. I'd seen stranger things. But it still didn't sit right. Everything felt thrown together, like it was built to look official, just enough to not raise alarms if you weren't paying attention. But I was. I pressed on, back to center lane, ignoring the barrels and sticking to US 2. Wind screamed now. I had to grip the wheel with both hands, arms locked, eyes scanning ahead for any break in the white. That's when I passed a little rest pullout I'd used once before. Nothing special, just a gravel shoulder widened out with a trash can and a busted-up picnic table. But today, it had company. A white F-250, old body style, beat to hell, sitting engine off in the back corner of the pullout. No lights, just sitting there like it had been watching the road. I pulled in behind it, shut down, and stepped out. Cold hit like a sledgehammer. I zipped up, pulled my beanie low, and walked over. Driver's side window was halfway down. Inside sat a guy in his 50s, scruffy beard, old Carhartt jacket, stained hoodie underneath. He was sipping from a thermos, watching me. He didn't look surprised. "You lost?" he asked, voice flat, no smile. "Not yet," I said. "You local?" "Used to be. Work out of Stanley now, plow when they pay me." "You seen those barrels up the road?" He nodded. "Yeah, I've seen them." "They DOT?" "Nope. That hung there between us for a beat too long." "Who puts them out then?" He shrugged, took another sip. "Someone who wants trucks off that highway." "Why?" He looked down at the thermos. "Can't say for sure, but you're not the first rig I seen slow down at that split." "What happens to the ones that take it?" He glanced up. "They don't come back this way." I felt my stomach knot up. "You telling me trucks go missing?" He didn't answer, just stared at me, jaw tight. "You ever report it?" "To who?" "State troopers got more things to care about than a couple barrels moving around in the snow." I looked back toward the highway. Wind howled like a train through the pines at the edge of the pullout. The snow was building faster now, starting to drift across the road in long, low waves. If I stayed much longer, I'd be buried by nightfall. I turned back to him. "You ever go down that road?" He shook his head. "Nope, never needed to." I thanked him, walked back to my rig and climbed in. Sat there a minute, engine warming the cab, thinking. My instincts said keep moving, get to Minot, and be done with it. But something in me wanted to understand what the hell was going on out there. Why those barrels were always pointed at places no truck should be. Why nobody was saying anything official. Why the only folks who seemed to notice were guys sitting alone in pullouts, waiting for someone else to ask. I put it back in gear, eased out of the lot, and merged back onto the highway.
GPS blinked once, twice, then steadied. Just up ahead, through the white wall of snow, I could see the outline of more barrels. They were waiting. I kept rolling, slow and steady, eyes locked on the road like it might shift under me if I blinked. Snow was coming sideways now, thick enough that I had to lean forward in the seat just to make out where the lanes used to be. The center line was gone. The shoulder was gone. If it weren't for the feel of the road under the tires, I wouldn't have known I was still on asphalt. That's what gets you out here. Visibility goes to hell, and you're just driving on memory, hoping your last good decision carries you a few more miles. A few clicks past that last pullout, I saw it again. More barrels. At first just a couple, poking out of a drift like teeth. Then a full line, maybe 10 of them, snaking across the westbound shoulder, almost nudging into my lane again. But they weren't in a line this time. They were curved, set just enough to catch a driver's eye and suggest a soft turn. Off the highway. Onto what, I didn't know. I slowed down, not stopping yet, just easing the throttle and watching. Then I saw a cut in the snowbank. Hard to spot with all the white, but it was there, like someone had run a plow through it once, maybe twice. Narrow access road, dipped slightly downhill. No sign, no lights, no name. My GPS stuttered again and gave me a quick reroute prompt. Nothing spoken, just a flash on screen. And then it corrected itself, back to US 2, like it realized it made a mistake. I pulled over, killed the flashers, let the engine idle. I sat there, thinking, checking mirrors, watching the snow pile on the windshield. I opened the window halfway, lit a smoke, listened. No sound but the wind and the faint click of ice on glass. I knew what my instincts were saying, but instincts don't always pay your fuel bill. Something was pulling trucks off this road, and it wasn't weather, and it wasn't luck. Out of habit, I grabbed my notebook from the dash and scribbled a note. Time, location, GPS coordinates. Old habit from when I used to haul hazmat. Paper trail, just in case. I shoved it back in the glove box, checked my mirrors again. Still, no other traffic. I eased back onto the road and kept going. Another mile, maybe two, and I spotted a DOT truck parked sideways on a narrow gravel turnout. Big yellow rig, stripes down the side, but no strobes on. Nobody in the cab. Bed was empty. No salt, no cones, no equipment. Just sitting there with the driver door half cracked open. I pulled in just past it, angled my rig, hopped out. The cold punched me hard again, but I walked back to take a closer look. I didn't touch anything, just leaned in. Footprints led away from the cab into the trees. Not a lot, maybe 6 or 7 steps. Then gone. Snow covered the rest.
I looked down at the tires, dry. Truck hadn't moved in a while, maybe a day, maybe more. As I turned to walk back to my rig, I saw a pair of headlights cutting through the snow from the west. At first I thought it was a trooper, but it wasn't. It was another rig, dry van. Looked like a mid-tier carrier, probably an owner-op judging by how clean the hood was. He was coming fast, too fast for the conditions. I flashed my lights, tried waving him down. He didn't slow, just barreled past, through a wave, and disappeared into the white. I watched his taillights fade, then vanish behind a drift. I walked quick back to my truck, jumped in, slammed the door, and started moving. Something had shifted. I don't know how to explain it, but the air felt different, like the road ahead had gone quiet in a new way. Not empty, just still, like it was waiting. A few minutes later, I caught a glimpse of something in the ditch. I thought it was trash at first. Then I saw it was rubber, chunks of tire, bits of plastic fender. I slowed again, scanned the snow. Just past the debris was a line in the ditch, long scrape, maybe 10 feet, curving into a low spot. The kind of line you get when a trailer goes sideways before tipping. But no trailer, no rig. Just the trace of it, like it had been there, then erased. I stopped again, flipped on my hazards, and stepped out. Walked to the edge of the road, scanned the ditch. No tracks, no cab, nothing. Just the shape left behind, like it slid off and got swallowed. I climbed back in the truck, shut the door, and just sat there for a long minute. My hands were shaking. Not bad, but enough to notice. I wasn't scared, not yet, but I was past curious now, past trying to explain it away. Whatever was going on, it wasn't accidental. It wasn't natural. Someone was doing something deliberate out here, moving barrels to steer trucks, placing detours that weren't marked, and rigs were disappearing. I needed to think, needed somewhere to stop, get my head on straight, maybe talk to someone. Next rest stop was another 20 miles. Small place, just a couple of pumps and a diner that probably shut down early in this weather. But it was something. As I pulled back onto the road, my headlights caught another thing. Quick flash of reflective tape way off in the field. Might have been a trailer door. Might have been a trick of the snow. I didn't check. Not yet. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the silence, maybe the snow, maybe just plain tired of pretending it was all just bad weather and sloppy DOT work. But when I saw the next barrel pattern, I didn't go around. I followed. It wasn't a smart move. I knew that even before my steer tires crossed the edge of the highway. But something about the way they were laid out, real intentional, tight curve leading into what looked like an old maintenance road. I don't know, it was like the barrels were waiting for someone who already made up their mind.
The road dipped down and curved north. No markings, no signs. Just a narrow track, maybe 12 feet wide, barely plowed, maybe once. Not a road you'd take unless someone told you to. And no one had. I took it anyway. The snow got thicker fast once I was off the main highway. The road dropped into a shallow basin, tree line on one side, open field on the other. Visibility cut to maybe 50 feet. The road started pulling right, then dipped again like it was following an old drainage route or maybe a buried pipeline. It didn't feel like it had any real purpose, but the tire tracks were there. Fresh ones, duals, deep. Another truck had come through maybe a few hours ahead of me. The snow hadn't filled the ruts in yet. I should have stopped. Right then, just backed out, found a spot to spin around, crawled my way back to the highway. But the road was tight and the shoulder too soft, and my trailer was loaded with nothing but steel shelving, rear heavy, not something I wanted to throw into a ditch with a bad turn. So I kept going, just creeping along 20 miles per hour, trying to stay in the old tracks. About a mile in, the road went from sketchy to full-on bad. Packed drift, thick and uneven, crusted over, but soft underneath. I could feel the drive tires catching air in spots. ABS light flickered once, then cleared. The snow on the left side was starting to bank high enough to push my mirrors. On the right, there was just a ditch, then fence, then nothing. I started talking to myself out loud, just low like a mechanic muttering over a socket wrench. All right, Rick, you've done dumber. Keep it straight. Keep it slow. Don't spin her. Another half mile, and I saw something in the snow. Not big, just a black hump sticking out of the drift on the right. I slowed, squinted. It was a mirror, West Coast style, stainless, bent back and frozen in place. I rolled past it, saw the rest. Tractor nose down in the ditch, buried up to the hood. No lights, no plates, cab door open about 3 inches like the driver got out and didn't bother to shut it behind him. I stopped. Full brakes, hazards on. Sat there, didn't get out, just stared at it through the passenger window, trying to decide if I was seeing what I thought I was. The rig was clean, not flipped, just off the road, like it got guided down gentle and left. I checked the GPS again, still dead. No signal, no location, just a frozen arrow pointing nowhere. I reached for the CB. Anyone out there on this access road north of 2? Got a rig in the ditch, looks recent. Nothing. Changed channels. Any driver out here near the 104 marker? I got abandoned Freightliner off the side. You all right, buddy? Still nothing. Just wind and static. I looked down at the shift, then at the snow starting to pile around my front bumper. If I stayed here, I'd be stuck too. I nudged her forward, slow, careful. One tire slip, and I was in the same shape as that other guy. The road narrowed again.
I figured I had maybe another mile before it reconnected somewhere. Had to. Couldn't just dead end out here in this mess. Then I saw something up ahead. A break in the tree line. Looked like a pullout. Maybe a gravel lot, maybe a service pad. I eased toward it, watching for more buried barrels or anything else meant to trap me. The tracks I'd been following looped into it. Big wide turn, then curved back like the driver had tried to get out and couldn't. I followed. Wrong move. The moment I turned into that lot, my back axle sank, just a little at first, enough to feel it, like hitting a patch of wet clay. I feathered the throttle, tried to back out. Drive spun, no grip. I was in it. Drifted snow under crust, soft as flour underneath. Trap set perfect. I dropped into low gear, rocked her once, nothing. Locked diffs, tried again. Drives just whined, then slipped. No use. I wasn't getting out without digging or winching. And out here, with no signal, that wasn't happening anytime soon. I killed the engine to think. Silence rushed in like a vacuum. No birds, no distant trucks, no wind now. Just the ticking of the motor cooling and the faint hiss of snow hitting metal. I looked around. Lot was empty. No buildings, no shacks. Just one old utility trailer, half collapsed, door ripped off. Looked like it had been used once as a work site, maybe long ago. I opened the glove box, grabbed my insulated gloves, stepped out, boots crunching deep. I walked a slow lap around the rig, checked the tires, buried halfway up. Chains might help if I could dig enough to get them on, but I didn't like how soft the ground felt under the snow, like it wasn't even gravel anymore, just snow over mud over ice. I climbed up on the driver's step, scanned the road I'd come from. No one, no movement. But the weird thing was the tire tracks. The ones I followed in, they weren't coming out, just one way. Like whoever came in here either got out some other way or didn't leave at all.
Nope, strap and tow bar. You want it or not? I looked back at my dash. Still no signal. Still no CB. Yeah, I said. Do it. He backed his truck in like he'd done it 100 times before. Old Chevy, flatbed with homemade steak sides, looked like it lived most of its life parked behind a barn. Diesel rattled and clattered like it was full of bolts. Rear tires were chains on, front were bald, windshield had one working wiper and a hole punched through the plastic on the driver's side where the defrost gave up years ago. But the man behind the wheel knew what he was doing. I could tell by the way he worked. Slow, smooth, no wasted motion. He dropped the strap on the ground and walked it over. Didn't say much. I hopped out and helped hook it under the front axle. No small talk, just work. After a few minutes, he climbed back into the Chevy and gave a couple throttle bumps. Tensioned the line, let it settle. Then he walked back up to my door. Keep your wheels straight, don't gun it. I'll do the pulling, you just keep it tracking. I nodded. You done this before? He looked at me like I'd asked if he'd seen snow in January. You wouldn't be the first they buried out here. They? He didn't answer, just turned and walked off. I climbed back in, ignition on, checked gear. When I felt the tug, I let off the brake and held steady. The truck groaned, back tires spinning just a bit, then caught. Frame rocked once, then I started moving. Slow, jerky at first, then steady. The Chevy strained, engine howling like it was chewing nails, rear tires clawing at the snow. Took maybe 30 yards of pull before I cleared the soft stuff and rolled back onto firmer ground near the road I came in on. He stopped, I stopped. I climbed out, met him at the strap. Appreciate it, I said, reaching for my wallet. 600, he said. I blinked. You said 2. That was for an easy pull. You buried deep, damn near popped my drives. I looked at his truck. Didn't look like anything had popped, except maybe his front shocks. But I didn't argue. I peeled off 600 cash. Had it on me, always do. Hazards of the job. Sometimes cash fixes things faster than cards or phone calls. He folded the bills into his coat without counting, turned back to unhook. Are you local? I asked. Close enough. You see this a lot? Barrels and detours that go nowhere? He nodded once. It ain't the state doing it, and it ain't wind. Then who? He pulled the strap into a coil, tossed it in his bed. People that want you off the road. People that don't want witnesses. They don't need your truck. They need what's in it.
I'm empty. Not everyone is. I looked out toward the field, that patch of white where I thought I'd seen a trailer earlier.
So they move barrels, steer trucks into dead zones, strip the load? If you're lucky, they just take the load. If you're not, they take the truck too, wipe the plates, scrub the VIN. Out here, don't take long for a semi to vanish, especially in weather like this. You seen it happen? Seen enough to know when to stay out the way. Why help me then? He paused at that. Because you stopped. Most don't. Most just follow the barrels like sheep. Don't look, don't question. You looked. He walked to his cab, pulled the door open, then turned back. Don't come this way again, he said. Then he was gone. Pulled out slow, headlights fading into the drift, taillights swallowed by the wind, like he was never there. I stood there for a while longer. Checked the rig, made sure nothing cracked or bent in the pull. She was fine, dirty and crusted in ice, but fine. I climbed in, fired her up, let the heat run full blast. Sat there, thinking. What kind of operation needs to use road barrels to hijack trucks? What kind of people know how to do it without getting caught? And how many trucks went missing before someone figured out it wasn't just weather or bad luck? I'd never heard of anything like this on the forums, not on the CB, not at truck stops. But that didn't mean it wasn't happening. Maybe the ones who went through it just never talked. Maybe they were too embarrassed. Or maybe they couldn't prove anything and nobody wanted to sound crazy. I took one last look in the mirror. The road behind me was gone, drifted over like I was never there. No sign of the Chevy, no barrels in sight. I put her in gear and eased back toward US 2, slow and straight, head on a swivel. My tires carved a new path out of that lot, and I swore I wouldn't use it again, not for $1,000,000. Back on the blacktop, it felt like coming up for air. My wheels hit the plowed shoulder with a jolt, and I rolled back onto US 2 like I hadn't just spent the last 2 hours stuck in a snow trap somebody laid out with more brains than I'd like to admit. The drift spit snow into the lane behind me like it didn't want to let go. I gave the dash a little knock and muttered, "We're not dead yet, girl," just out of habit. Heater was working hard, cab finally warming up again, and I kept my foot light. My legs were sore from bracing that whole mess, hands still stiff from the cold, even through the gloves. But the tires held, and that was enough for now. There was no rush anymore. I had already blown the pickup window in Minot, called dispatch right before I lost signal for good, told them I had to reroute, didn't give details, just enough to get them off my back. They weren't happy, but they weren't sending a rescue either. Out here, it's on you, always is. For the next 20, 30 miles, I kept checking my mirrors like a man being followed. But I wasn't expecting another truck. I was waiting to see if that old Chevy showed up again, or if another rig made the same mistake I did. Maybe I'd see someone creeping down the road, eyeing the same fake detour, thinking it looked safer than the highway. But I didn't see a soul. US 2 had gone dead, like I was the only driver left in the state. About an hour later, I pulled into a gravel lot outside a tiny gas station near Berthold. Place barely qualified as a truck stop. One diesel pump, one working toilet, a coffee machine with a "Do Not Use" sign taped to it, and a guy behind the counter who looked like he used to work roughneck until his knees gave out. I grabbed a Coke, paid cash, then asked, "You hear anything about trucks going missing near Ray?" He didn't even look up. Nope. I waited. He finally glanced at me. "You hear something?" "Maybe." He leaned on the counter. "You see anything?" I didn't answer, just cracked the Coke, took a swig. He nodded like that was enough. "A lot of folks say snow eats trucks this time of year.
Wind does the rest. You get stuck, you get cold, you get desperate. That's all it is. Yeah, I said. Sure. He didn't press. Neither did I. I went back out, sat in the gravel lot for a while, heat blasting. I pulled out the notebook again, flipped to a fresh page, and wrote everything down. Every barrel, every turn, every rig I saw half buried or worse. The guy in the Chevy, the tow, the price, what he said. I didn't write it to report. I wrote it so I wouldn't start second-guessing myself later. Because that's what happens. You see something that doesn't line up with how the world's supposed to work, and your brain starts sanding down the edges, trying to make it fit. Pretty soon you're telling yourself it was nothing, just snow, just wind, just bad luck. But it wasn't bad luck. I sat in that gravel lot long enough to watch another storm roll in. Gray mass to the west, moving like a wall. I thought about staying put, maybe riding it out, but the lot wasn't plowed, and the guy behind the counter didn't look like he'd come out if I needed help. So I rolled on. Bismarck was still a few hours southeast, and I figured I'd find a spot off I-94 and hole up for the night. Far from US 2, far from those barrels. Somewhere past Makoti, I saw another rig ahead of me. Day cab pulling a flatbed, empty. He was doing about 40, lights on, steady hands. I pulled up slow and gave him a flash with the high beams to let him know I was back there. He tapped his hazards, let me pass. As I eased by, I looked into his cab. Driver was staring straight ahead, hands at 10 and 2, jaw locked tight. No wave, no nod, just that look like he'd seen something and wasn't done thinking about it yet. I wanted to key the mic and ask, "You go near Ray?" But I didn't. Didn't feel right. By the time I hit Highway 83 and started dropping south, I finally picked up a signal. Phone blew up with 3 voicemails from dispatch and a text from a buddy in Williston asking if I was still alive. I sent back a short reply. Still kicking. Detoured. Road's bad. Headed to Bismarck.
He wrote back a minute later. You take 2? Heard weird shit up that way. Driver out of Billings vanished yesterday. Straight up gone. No call, no tracker. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I put the phone down, eyes on the road, hands back on the wheel. Wind howled across the hood again, snow dancing just above the asphalt, like I couldn't decide if it wanted to stick or fly. I kept driving. I laid low in Bismarck for 2 nights, caught a motel off exit 161, one of those places with thin walls and burnt coffee, but it had heat and hot water, which was all I needed. I parked the rig tight along the back fence, nose out, just in case I had to leave fast. Habit, I guess. After what happened, I didn't trust anything with a snowbank near it. Didn't take another load right away. I told dispatch I was doing a systems check. Said I heard something off in the drives after the pull. That bought me 48 hours without calls. Truth is, I just didn't want to get back on the road. Not yet, not north especially. I spent most of that time in the room, boots on, TV low, staring at the map I'd marked up. Routes I used to take, stops I used to like, all of it now wrapped in a thread of doubt, especially that stretch near Ray. I posted on one of the driver forums, real low-key, used a burner account, didn't use my name, just said, anyone else seen barrels near Ray on 2 that don't look like DOT setups? I got a couple of jokes. One guy sent a meme of a ghost with a traffic vest. But there was one reply, no name, just a blank profile. It said, they move at night, avoid detours, watch the mirrors. Then nothing else. I thought about going to the state patrol, thought about filing something formal, maybe even calling a reporter. But what would I say? I followed some suspicious barrels into a snowbank and a stranger pulled me out for $600? That doesn't make a story. That makes me sound like a rookie, and I ain't one. So, I shut up. I changed my routing filter on the ELD software. Took US 2 off the list. From now on, if I had to run Williston to Minot or anything in that slice, I'd drop south through Bismarck or even down to South Dakota if I had to. Burn more fuel, lose a few hours. Worth it. I added a new setup to the dash, mounted GoPro facing the hood, tied into the battery so it rolls as long as the engine is on. If anything like that ever happens again, I'm not coming out of it without footage. I also started keeping a backup cell with no service, just for GPS tracking. Slipped it under the bunk with a hardwired charger. Last resort, but better than nothing. I don't care how careful you are, one bad reroute and you're off the map out here. About 2 weeks after Bismarck, I pulled into a truck stop near Fargo. Middle of the night, lot half full. Walked inside to grab coffee, stretch my legs. A couple other drivers were talking by the window, one of them smoking despite the no smoking sign taped right next to him.
"You hear about that load out of Glasgow?" one of them said. "Driver didn't make check-in. Load showed up stripped 3 days later down in Iowa. Breakdown?" Dispatch says no. GPS showed a straight line till it cut, off a service road west of Ray. My ears perked. I stood near the beef jerky rack and just listened. Same area that other guy went dark, remember? Yeah, that hazmat run, still listed as missing. They didn't say more after that. I left with my coffee, heart beating slow but hard. That's how it works out here. You only catch bits, whispers, no headlines, just stories in the night, traded like cigarettes. I kept running after that, but I stayed off the northern routes, took more Midwest freight, lots of Iowa and Nebraska, southern Minnesota. Lighter weather, more towns, better cell coverage. It felt soft at first, like I was dodging something. But then I realized it wasn't fear, it was a choice. You see something once and walk away, maybe it was luck. See it again, it's a pattern. And when you see the pattern, you don't play dumb. A couple months later, I saw a post on a different forum. Picture of a rig half buried in snow near a tree line. Caption just said, "They're still doing it." That's all. No names, no tags, no explanation. It had 3 likes and 1 reply. Don't stop, don't follow. I saved it. Still got it on my phone. Some nights, parked at a rest area with the engine off and nothing but wind tapping the glass, I look at it. Makes me remember that feeling, that quiet, that wrong silence. The way the barrels looked like they were telling you where to go, not asking. This job doesn't scare me, never has. But that stretch of US 2 changed the way I think, changed where I trust. These days I run like I'm being hunted, even when I know I'm not. I double-check detours, I don't follow cones unless I see the crew, and if I see a road that wasn't there last time, hell with it, I keep driving. Because once you've seen a rig disappear into a snowdrift with no sound, no trace, no name on the report, you don't forget it. You just choose never to be next.